Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Jack Hemingway. Tonight we'll introduce you to a creature that lives in the land of towering cliffs and perpetual snows. It thrives in the places where nature pushes the elements to the limit. The rugged terrain of the northern Rocky Mountains is home to the mountain goat. Only on the top of a mountain do you experience it. Spectacular sunrises pushing tentative fingers of light over the horizon to gently nudge the shoulder of the land, waking it from slumber. Splashes of rosy glow polish the morning sky, reaching into the far-off vista of eternity. It seems that in all wild and windswept places, the land is rich with romantic legend. Except here, on the roof of the world, fact and fable become closely intertwined. They appear suddenly and silently, like ancient ghosts, colored in the snowy shades of winter. A shaggy beast, shadowed in mystery, the mountain goat long baffled early explorers. Some thought it a white buffalo, mirroring the muscle-humped forequarters and narrow rump of the bison. Lewis and Clark dubbed it another form of mountain sheep, similar to the bighorns they had already encountered on their journey. Captain James Cook, trading pelts with the Indians, concluded that it was the coat of the white bear.
They look to me like they've been around for millions of years. The way they live and where they live, they're just adapted to this kind of habitat.
Their habitat is also their defense. Sheer, craggy cliffs stretching skyward to rocky peaks. A home carved from granite.
That's where goats live, and this is how they survive. It's their escape cover. Outside of their horns as weapons, they don't have any other way of getting away from predators if something was to go after a mountain lion or a bear. But they can run around in these rocks that no other animal can really get around in.
It's early summer, and most of the females have already given birth. Their winter coats hang in long, ragged tatters as they jostle each other for position among the rocks.
There's a hierarchy, and there's lots and lots of jostling goes on in the population. Although they are always close together and in groups, there's a certain amount of space around them that they seem to want.
As a rule, the females dominate the males, and the rest of the pecking order seems to have a lot to do with the size and age. The lowest spot on the totem pole is reserved for the yearlings, last year's offspring.
He's at the bottom of the peck order. Probably hasn't been dependent upon his mother since about last October or November, but they're pretty protective of those little guys.
During the course of the day, goats from every age group appear: kids, yearlings, 2-year-olds, and adult males and females. This is the sign of a healthy mountain goat population. Goats have never been plentiful. Because their habitat is limited to areas like this, high, rocky outcrops, their numbers stay naturally low. In Idaho, there are 39 identified populations of mountain goats. This group, on Black Mountain, has been here since before the time of Lewis and Clark, but other populations are the result of a transplant program initiated by the Idaho Department of Fish and Game.
Some of them, like the one at Palisades, were established by trapping and transplanting to there 25 years ago. And there are several hundred goats there now. It's one of the better populations in the state.
They spend a large part of the day pawing, licking, and crunching the deteriorating rock and gravel of the peak, seeking the salt and minerals their bodies require. As the day heats up, the pervasive bugs become intolerable. The goats lead another mountain resident in a dirty dance of rock and roll. Their white coats dulled with dirt, they retreat from the hot midday sun into the shady forest that shelters the remaining snow.
And the goats live on those snowbanks. That's where they rest during the day. They get their water there because the snow is melting, and they drink that free water. And that water also produces succulent vegetation and they eat the grass that grows. So those snowbanks are extremely important to goats in the summertime.
From a distance, they appear to be a large boulder or snowbank blending with the environment. Until they move, they're very difficult to see. But set against a bright summer sky, the mountain goat becomes an artist's masterpiece. Classically posed on the edge of a chasm, he appears carved from granite as he surveys the world below. Still as stone, mountain and mountain goat merge. The males lose their coats early, leaving tufts of winter hair suspended in pine branches and trailing on shrubs. Their slicked-off bodies disclose enormous shoulder muscles and powerful chests. But the female is slower to shed.
This has something to do with the fact that she's nursing a kid, and her condition is probably not as good as the males. Therefore, her new hair isn't growing as fast and forcing out the old hair.
This time of year, it's fairly easy to distinguish between the males and females in a group. Aside from the telltale shaggy coat, the fact that most of the females are nursing has caused their swollen mammary glands to be clearly visible. But in the winter, it can be a very different story. The sex organs are hidden by longer hair, so the only reliable characteristic is a slight difference in the horns. The males are much thicker at the base and sweep up into an arc. The female's horns have less bulk and hook about 3 inches from the end. Horn and hoof are the mountain goat's security. Few animals have the dexterity to climb the sheer, precarious face of a mountain.
They have a hoof that kind of goes like this, and inside of that hoof there's soft pads that grip onto these rocks, and they just virtually can go straight up and down, and they do.
The heat of the day is past, and the sun begins to lose its harsh glare. The light softens, slowly retreating to make room for the night. Sharp edges gradually disappear as the mountains blush, bathed in the warm, velvety hues of a hazy dream world. Below, on the steep shale slope, 2 small kids use the last of their energy to romp and frolic, heedless of the cliff below. Finally, spent and sleepy, this little fellow surrenders to the night in the safe haven of his mountain home. In this book by the famous children's author Dr. Seuss, he writes a story about imaginary animals using whimsical letters. One such animal is the nutch, in which he uses the fictional letter N. And he writes, "And N is the letter I use to spell nutches, who live in small caves, known as niches for hutches. These nutches have troubles, the biggest of which is the fact there are many more nutches than niches." You could say the mountain bluebird has the same problem as Dr. Seuss's nutches. Not enough niches for their nests. But a very special man has come along who's going to change all that.
Oh, bluebirds are cavity nesters. In the wild, they find abandoned woodpecker holes and other natural cavities. Since there's a shortage of natural cavities, we are able to help the bluebirds and other cavity nesters by putting out man-made nest boxes. It's the same to the bird. It's a cavity with a little hole in it, and it doesn't seem to whine at all.
Idaho's state bird, the mountain bluebird, is found statewide. But near the small town of Prairie, you'll see an unusual abundance of these brightly feathered songbirds, thanks to the efforts of Al Larson. They call him the Bluebird Man.
We've got 4 baby mountain bluebirds, about 5 days old.
Al Larson has been checking bluebird boxes like this every spring and summer for the past 14 years.
At this age, I just leave them alone. They're kind of small to put a band on. I just count them and record the information on the cards here.
Each of these cards corresponds to one of the 117 bluebird boxes on the route. Al records when each nest is built, tallies the eggs, how many of them hatch, and the number of bluebird young that fledge from the nest.
Oh, there's some good-sized babies. I'll be able to band these.
The boxes are placed about eye level, facing east, so the birds catch the warmth of the early morning sun and are shadowed during the afternoon heat.
I can tell you almost exactly how old they are by giving a little measurement here. That's about 49 millimeters. These guys are about 12 days old.
Al bands the young to gather a life history on each bird. Through the years, he's discovered that bluebirds tend to return as adults to the same area where they were fledged. And an adult female will return to the same nest box year after year.
So I like to bring the birds out, usually two at a time or more than one, so that they'll feel each other together, and it seems like the sibling contact keeps them quiet.
It's quite easy to tell the male from the female in adult birds. The male is bright cobalt blue, shading to a powdery blue on his breast. The female is more gray, with splashes of blue on the tail and main wing feathers or primaries. But with the young, it's a bit more difficult.
I just noticed the difference in color on here. The female is in my right hand and the male is in the left. You can notice the blue developing in the young ones, at about 12 days old.
Soon after the young are banded and placed back into the nest, the adults return to feed their offspring.
The nestlings receive mostly insects, flies, mosquitoes, worms, grubs, caterpillars, things like that. They're a very beneficial bird from man's point of view.
Al has become the resident expert on mountain bluebirds, spending long hours just watching the birds go about their business. For this gentle man, there can be no better pastime.
I guess I like bluebirds, to work with bluebirds because they accept me, they accept people probably more than a lot of the other songbirds do. They are in need of help for their nesting spots, and I can help them. It just seems like I'm reaching out and helping somebody in need. I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. Well, we go on to the next one and see what's in there. This is like Christmas time, you know, you open the packages and you wonder what's going to be inside. Oh, these birds have already fledged. The young in here have fledged and have left two old eggs that didn't hatch.
Al speculates they may have become chilled before the female began incubating.
So what I do now is clean out the old nest so that the birds can start a new one.
The adult birds can actually bring off 2 sets of young each year, with 5 to 6 eggs in each clutch. A little simple arithmetic demonstrates why Al Larson is known as the Bluebird Man. 14 years of banding these nestlings has him handling well over 5,000 bluebirds.
I have no financial backing on it, and I receive nothing out of it but the joy of working with the birds. I've got the western bluebird in this box.
This is a close cousin to the mountain bluebird. Although the young look very similar, the adult has a bright red breast like a robin and is colored a deeper shade of blue.
They're all bluebirds. They're neat to work with. The mountain bluebird seems to be a little more robust. They accept me a little bit more. The western bluebird seems to be a little more shy. This one is the male with the real dark royal blue, and the females are just more gray. There's very little color on them.
Al hopes someday to combine all his note cards and years of observations into a book on bluebirds. But perhaps that would steal time away from what he really loves.
I just like to sit there and observe them and watch their family life. I think it helps a person realize his place in life if he gets close to these birds, other wildlife, and see how they live. And if you help them out, then you have a more direct part in it.
As human beings, we have a tendency to fashion tall tales about the things that frighten us. Predators, bears, wolves, mountain lions, seem to bear the brunt of our superstitious terror. It begins in our childhood. Fairy tales such as Goldilocks and the Three Bears tend to portray the animals that hunt to survive as evil. What is imagination and what is reality? Some answers may be found in an exciting new museum exhibit all about bears.
Yeah, we'll start building off of the back wall here.
3 semi-trailers containing 23 full-size mounts and scores of videos, computer games, dioramas, and flip books have descended on the Boise Historical Museum for the summer. It's a distinctive traveling exhibit designed by the Science Museum of Minnesota to teach, entertain, and provoke viewers.
It's very unique. It's one of a kind, really. It's over 5,000 square feet on the natural history of the bear and also bear and human relationships.
I used to have a bear just like that. I have a bear. I have that bear grandpa.
Oh, yeah.
From the childhood security of teddy bears to the actuality of a full-size grizzly, the exhibit offers the full scope of bears and men's perception of them. It's titled Bears, Imagination and Reality, and even provokes opinions from some of the younger museum visitors who may favor a little more reality and a little less imagination.
Because they don't act like cartoon bears and they don't talk.
The mounts are bears that have met with some misfortune. They were either poached, hit by a car, or died in the wild of natural causes. But even this can be turned into a lesson.
How do you think they were killed?
People.
Poachers, maybe? Yep.
Viewers get an opportunity to actually feel the fur of a grizzly or black bear, marvel at teeth, and watch the antics of small cubs frozen in time. Displays track the association of bears and man, from the customs and dress of Native Americans to the research tools of today.
They're helping them. This picture says how they can make sure they're healthy.
Perhaps one of tomorrow's biologists will trace her inspiration to a day spent in the company of bears.
They put it on the bear's neck so they can make sure so they can keep track.
We spend a lot of time out on the floor doing different sorts of evaluation of our exhibits to see if people's attitudes have changed after going through the exhibit. And sometimes it's really heartwarming. Other times it's really humbling.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
These kids have become research scientists for a day, helping to measure and weigh an amazingly real-looking bear.
It's 118 centimeters.
Oh, it's tremendous. They have natural curiosity, and now when we go back, they'll have a million more questions, and they will have some new ideas about bears that they never thought of before, and it will just make their whole day.
The rewards for the designers are not only artistry and education, but the sense of something that goes deeper.
The greatest thing you can experience after doing one of these things is standing in the hall and watching people and watch a family interact at a component, watch parents and kids. That sort of social interaction, I think, is what museums are about.
How many kids can get on the teddy bear?
Each month we open our show with a dramatic flight over Idaho, highlighting the wealth of wildlife which shares our state. The powerful music that accompanies these pictures was composed by Idaho's own Kevin Kirk. Tonight, we'd like to use Kevin's talents to close our show as well. This piece was inspired by the magical world of the mountain goat.